So you lose a couple. Well, they didn't turn out to be program players because they're leaving, but those type of role players on defense. But a guy that certainly was significant, at least in the return game, in Giles Jackson. So this is kind of the weekly transfer update that I pretty much have to do with every team. So it's not just Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen it, not to keep going back to college basketball, but there's like almost 400 kids in the college basketball transfer portal within, a couple weeks after the season ended. And football is doing the same, essentially, right?
And that's with 12 and 13 man rosters.
Right. Not a 120, essentially, on a lot of these football rosters. So, as these years keep going, I imagine the transfer portal is going to be maybe a bigger recruiting tool than guys coming out of high school, so it'll be really interesting. But yeah, Giles Jackson enters the transfer portal. There's a couple things that come to my mind about Giles Jackson. Yes, 100%, incredibly talented kid. He will excel somewhere. But I'm not sure. Maybe he didn't fit into Josh Gaddis's offense. And maybe it's on Josh Gaddis that he needed to make him fit in, because you saw it. He was doing like wide receiver sweeps a lot, and he was doing some of those things. They needed to get him the ball and get him in space. They have a lot of these speedy wide receivers, but I would love to see them use them a little bit differently instead of, running a slant every time. Run into the middle of the field, use some bubble screens, use some of these different plays that can get Giles Jackson in space. If you get Giles Jackson in the open field, I mean, there's not much that's going to stop him. So, the one thing that I think about Giles Jackson, I'm not sure how mature he was. To be honest, I think he had a lot of issues that he in himself with his maturity, that he maybe wasn't ready for the big stage quite yet. I think athletically, definitely, but I think that there were some things he may have thought he was better than he was. I think that, especially when you put in the mix what last season brought in terms of COVID and in terms of just not going well for Michigan. Sometimes when things like that happen for a guy that maybe isn't as mature as he needs to be at that stage, or maybe, mental health could be an issue here too. So I think there are a lot of factors in there. One thing I will say too, I don't know how much Giles Jackson will be missed. I think he's a great player. I think he could have done great things for Michigan, but Michigan has a lot of young talent at that position right now that can do just about the same thing as Giles Jackson. So as much as I think this could have been a breakout year for him, I think there will be a lot of guys that can step in right there.
So that's what I'm going to hit you with. Jackson in 3 touchdowns 2 years ago in 2019. They came from different ways. I think a return, a catch, and a run, and 2 return touchdowns in his career, all in Big Ten play. So they mattered. But so he moves on, and it was more about his potential, as you point out.